Everybody in this locker room, including myself, the coaches, we have to start knowing what we're supposed to be doing.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily podcast on fantasy basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast, brought to you by Fantrax and Basketball Monster. And this episode of Locked On Fantasy Basketball is also sponsored by Draft, a daily fantasy app where your chances of winning are almost 3 times better than FanDuel or DraftKings. Download Draft now or go to playdraft.com and be sure to enter the promo code LOFANTASY when you download to get a 100% deposit bonus. My name is Josh Lloyd, as you already know, and you can find me on Twitter at redrock_bball. There was 11 games in the NBA on Wednesday. That's a lot of stuff to get into. So, Michael Bolton, let's have at it.
Let's get to it.
Thank you, Mick. All right, we do have 11 games to talk about. We've got only 4 games on the Thursday, so the preview section will be a little bit smaller. The last 2 podcasts have gone for an extraordinary amount of time, so I do apologize. Some of you have said you love it. I'm sure some of you have said, I'm not listening to an hour and a half worth of some dickhead in Melbourne talking about basketball, and that's fair enough. I'll try to make it. I'm not going to leave out information, but I probably won't go on maybe as many rants as what the last 2 episodes have had. But in saying that, I've just wasted a minute of your time talking shit. So let's get straight in to the monstrous line of the night. And I didn't think I'd ever be announcing Otto Porter as the monstrous line of the night, but here we are. Porter had 34 points. He had 14 rebounds, which in itself is a massive night. But then he added 3 triples, he added 4 assists, he added 3 steals, and he added 3 blocks, and he went 14 of 19 from the field. It is one of the biggest lines of the season from any player, and Porter has been on a ridiculous roll. He is the 20th ranked player in 8 category leagues this season. 20th. It's ridiculous. He has thrived playing the power forward position in the last 2 games. Markieff Morris in this one struggled a little bit with his playing time as he did in the last one. And the reason why that's great and Porter's doing well, but the reason why it might not work long term to do that is that forces Marcus Thornton into big minutes. And you got to look at it 2 ways. Yeah, Porter's playing better than Markieff Morris at the 4, but the difference between Markieff and Marcus Thornton is pretty significant. So we're going to see some Otto at the 4, and that's basically taken Andrew Nicholson out of the rotation completely, which is fine. But I don't think you're going to see him there full time, because that means, which we actually got in this game, we got 34 minutes of Marcus Thornton, and he put together a pretty decent line. But I don't think that's something that's sustainable long term if a team like the Wizards want to win games, unfortunately, because Marcus Thornton's not really all that good. But he's putting in the performances, no doubt. At the moment, putting in some big numbers. And if we look at his numbers on the season, they're ridiculously good. As I said, he's ranked 20th. It's not going to hold. And you know why it's not going to hold? Because he's shooting 61% from the field. And that is the big chunk of what he's doing. Yes, 17 points is nice, but once that field goal percentage comes back down, and he was a 47% guy last season, so that's pretty good. So maybe he becomes a 48 or a 49% guy. That's not out of the question. But that drops his scoring down. It drops it from 17 points a game, maybe to 15 points a game, maybe to 14.5. 8.3 rebounds is significantly above anything he's done in his career. But maybe that can stick. The 1.5 steals, bang on where he is. Half a block, right on there. 92% from the free throw line. Also, he's just going through a ridiculously hot streak. Except when you go to his 3-point shooting, and he's a 32% shooter this year. After the All-Star break last year, he shot 45% from 3. So he does actually have room to get better with his shooting. Just his 2-point shooting, there's almost no way he can continue. Well, there is no way he can continue being a 61% shooter. It would be unfathomable for a wing to shoot 61% from the field. So know that Porter is going to drop. And if you know someone in your league that's tied to rankings numbers, use the fact. So he's the 20th ranked player, mate. Do you want him? Because we know that is going to regress. The other numbers will stick. The threes, that might go up even. The assists are about right. The steals are right. The blocks are right. But the field goal percentage will drop. That'll drop the scoring a little bit. And that'll cut his value down maybe 40 spots. And then he'll hover in that 50 to 70-ish range. I think he can do that. But he's in rarefied air at the moment, putting up big numbers. He's also playing 35 minutes a night as well, as Scott Brooks leans very heavily on the starters with this Washington team. But a huge night from Otto again. I was pulling for Otto. Not only did I have him in my DFS lineups on one of the sites, which I was pretty happy with, as he racked up 5x value in the first quarter. That was a nice start. But getting Otto Porter and then coming up with a pun for his name for the podcast, it was done. I had this one in the bag about 3 years ago. Very easy to do. If he throws together a few more, maybe then I might start struggling. But once we had Otto Porter in there, the name of the pod, it wrote itself, as they say in the classics. So a big night from Otto Porter. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this podcast is brought to you by a new sponsor. And we all know that I love getting out the supporters and the listeners of this podcast to support the new sponsors, to show them that we can activate on things and go and check out what these people who are supporting me and supporting this show. And I guess if you listen to this show, you like it, unless you hate listening, which welcome if you're doing that as well. But go and support the sponsors. And today's sponsor is Draft. We already know that you love playing fantasy basketball, because otherwise why would you be listening to this podcast? So therefore, I know you're going to love playing fantasy on Draft. It's a very simple app. It's a daily fantasy app, but it's not like your other daily fantasy sites. It's where you can do snake drafts, just like the ones that you do in the seasonal leagues at the start of the season. You do a snake draft every day, and that's it. It lasts for one day. So it's DFS, it's snake draft DFS, basically. It only takes a couple of minutes to do. You can play for free, or you can play for money. And your chance of winning on Draft, it's 3 times better than DraftKings or FanDuel. You know, I've done a couple of drafts on here. I had the number 1 pick. I took Jim Harden, as of course I would today. He had a triple-double. Didn't quite get the monster here with Porter putting up that big night. But that's what you do. It's a snake draft every day. So go and check it out. Download Draft. But when you do download Draft, use my promo code LOFANTASY. And that tells the guys at Draft that you came from listening to Locked On Fantasy Basketball. And they'll go, you know what? Josh's audience, mate, they're right there. They're up there. Not only is it big, but they appreciate a good product. So go over, download this app, go to the App Store, search Draft. I know you know how to spell that, DRAFT, and then it should be the first one that comes up. If not, or if you can't find it and you're having trouble, go to playdraft.com. Playdraft.com, and use that promo code LOFANTASY when you download it, and get 100% deposit bonus. So go and download the app, Draft, search in the App Store, go to playdraft.com, and have some fun with daily snake drafts. I'm sure you will enjoy it. I know it's a lot of fun, and you obviously love fantasy basketball, and this is another great way of supporting the podcast. So it doesn't cost you anything. You can go and play on there for free, download it, but use that promo code LOFANTASY. The waiver wire line of the night, well, just rinse and repeat from last night. Seth Curry, for the Dallas Mavericks. He had 10 points, and that's not fantastic on the surface. He had 2 triples and 1 rebound, but where he really thrived was he gave you 9 assists, he gave you 5 steals, and he had 2 blocks, and he also went 4 of 17 from the field, but that's not ideal. It was all set up for Seth in this one, a matchup against his brother. But also before the game, which we didn't find out about until about 10 minutes before tip, the Mavericks, who were already without Darren Williams and were without Dirk Nowitzki, decided, you know what, Wes Matthews, you're not playing. JJ Barea, you're not playing. Andrew Bogut, you're not playing. So Seth Curry, you're going to be running things with your backup being Justin Anderson. We're going to have Nicola Brasino in there, Dorian Finney-Smith playing big minutes. And that's how Seth, he's a good player. Definitely, it's 2 waiver wire lines of the night in a row. But the Mavericks, they don't play again until Monday. I know a lot of people were very, very crusty at the Mavericks deciding to rest these people. I had Barea in some of my DFS lineups, so I wasn't overly impressed. But some people get a little bit snarky when a late decision is made, and they lament the loss of late swap on DraftKings, which I believe you can still do on Yahoo. So they lament that late swap issue with the Mavericks pulling all these guys out, and that could have affected a lot of things because Barea was looking like a great option. But as for Curry, in terms of his long-term standard league value, I don't think it's there because Williams and Dirk, the Mavericks play again on Monday. It's likely they'll be back for that game. That's the latest report out of Dallas, that they'll be back for that game. So not only will Barea and Matthews be back in the backcourt, but Williams will be back as well. So it pushes Seth down to being the fourth backcourt option. And that's not going to be, we saw he hasn't been a 12-team league guy until these last couple of games. and he probably isn't going to be now. So I don't think there's any point in rushing out to go and grab Seth Curry at this moment, but we always need to pay attention if Williams goes down or Barea goes down or two of them go down or Wes goes down, that Curry is going to have an opportunity for an extended role and he can produce, which is just the most baffling situation as to A, why Sacramento wouldn't keep him, or why another team wouldn't go out and get him, why the Bulls wouldn't go after Seth Curry and pay him more than the $3 million that he got paid by Dallas and say, you know what, we're in a rebuilding situation. We'll pay you $7 million a year for 2 years. Come and be our starting point guard. Because the atrocity that's there at the moment, which I'll talk about later, is not getting it done. But Seth, that is 2 waiver wire lines of the night for him in a row. And again, if you want to hear the Locked On Mavericks guys talk about it, which they've got a lot to talk about with these injuries, the rest, but also the play of their younger players, like Seth, like Justin Anderson, who had a really big game as well. How the pencil Harrison Barnes looked in his return to Golden State. Go and listen to Mike Marshall and Jake Kemp over on Locked On Mavericks, and they'll give you the lowdown. They'll give you the information if you want to hear when Dirk is coming back, when Darren Williams is coming back, and how they might be using Seth, and how Carlisle feels about Seth running things at the moment, or how he fared in this game. Go and check out Locked On Mavericks, obviously a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, as this podcast is. The young gun of the night, Kristaps.
Percentages.
Yeah, he's really good. 21 points, 8 rebounds, 4 3-pointers, 1 assist, 2 steals, 2 blocks on 7 of 15 shooting. I don't think you need me to really tell you that he's good. He's really good. I drafted him in a lot of spots this season. He's averaging 19 points a game. He's averaging 2.5 threes a game, 6.5 rebounds, half a steal, 1.6 blocks, and shooting 49% and 45 from 3. There was always a real big chance he was going to take a step up in his field goal percentage. We projected it out, not to this level, but we thought he would get better. And the thing is that his free throw percentage is really letting him down at the moment. He's only at 71% from the free throw line. He gets that back up to the 84 he shot last season, and his value rises where he's currently ranked 38th, and you find him come into being a top 30 guy, a top 25 sort of player. He's got scope to increase his blocks. He can get his rebounds back up there, and his free throws up there. And I did make a claim a while ago saying that I believe he's the Knicks' best player. Some people disagree with me. I'd like to know, the majority of you people listening, is Kristaps Porzingis the Knicks' best player? I still think that he is. I know Mallow had a pretty decent game today, but there should be zero doubt that Porzingis is their second best player. If he's not their best player, he is their second best player, and there should be absolutely no debate about that whatsoever. And if you've got a debate about it, I'd like to hear it. I'd like to have that discussion with you. But there is no chance that he is worse than the second best player on this team. Another big night from Kristaps, and after that real stinker that he turned in a couple of games ago, the Knicks, at least they recognised the folly of their ways and have gone back to him, and he's putting up some really, really interesting numbers. The data of the night's putting up some interesting numbers as well, but not in a good way. Nikola Mirotic, just the 2 for Mirotic, just the 2 points, 1 rebound, 1 assist, missed all 3 of his shots, missed all 2 of his free throws, and I feel like this personally, that whenever I talk about this guy, that I put a lot of blame on Fred Hoiberg. And there is a lot of blame there, but Mirotic can't be completely blameless because he's shooting the ball horribly. He's only at 35% on the season. He's at 27% from 3. But this is a guy that shot 44% from 3 after the All-Star break. He shot 45 from the field. He can shoot the ball, but it's missing. He's not getting any steals. He hasn't got one single steal this season. But everything else is almost in line of where he is basically every year. His rebound per 36 level is the same. His threes are a bit down, and his scoring is because the percentage is down. His block rate is the same. It's really just his shooting that's letting him down. And as usual, when he misses a shot, Hoiberg just goes, well, mate, we're not playing you anymore. Despite how horrendous Bobby Portis might play. And Portis was disgustingly bad in this game. And I don't know why they persisted with him. Hoiberg, this team is a mess. They're really, really terrible. They're going to lose a lot of games. And Hoiberg is not going to last past this season. At the very minimum. He could be gone by Christmas. He doesn't have the team organised. Their defense is atrocious. His substitution patterns are really poor. His decision to play guys is really bad. And again, Mirotic takes on a lot of the blame, but he is going to get this shot falling. Everything else is happening. And when he gets the shot falling, Hoiberg will come out there and go, oh, mate, maybe you're a good player now. Hoiberg's got no ability to trust the process. And I use that completely unironically. He's very results-based. Did a shot go in? Get off. If it didn't. Did it go in? You're the greatest ever. It's not about did you make the right decision? Did you take the right shot? Was it the right shot and it didn't go in? Hey, maybe you're just in a shooting slump. I feel like these thought processes don't even go through Højbjerg's head. Yeah, Mirotic is playing terribly, but a lot of his other stuff is happening. There's still, if you want to drop Mirotic, absolutely no problem. I can totally understand that. I'm a little bit less reactionary with things like that, and I will hold him. I think I own him in 1 or 2 leagues, but they're dynasty leagues, so I wouldn't be dropping him there. I will hold him, but I can totally understand getting rid of him because it's not just about how much talent you've got, it's about how the coach is going to use that talent and how he's going to use it. And we know that if a shot misses, then he's just going to sit on his ass for the rest of the game. And that's exactly the way that Højbjerg runs it. And it is the most maddening situation in the entire NBA. It just frustrates me no end. And I am a Mirotic fan, I definitely admit that. And maybe I'm a little bit too positive with him and optimistic with him because he has been bad. But the way he gets handled is absolutely atrocious, in my opinion. And I cannot see Højbjerg forging out a long career with the Bulls or with any team in the NBA, to be honest, given some of the coaching decisions he's made over the course of his short career. Let's move into looking at these games now in that extra detail. There are 11 of them, so let's get straight into it. Utah and Charlotte was the first one. Really, really good games from some really good teams. No Georgie Hill. Gordon Hayward is an animal. 29, 7 and 4, 3 threes, a steal and a block. You must be absolutely loving it if you drafted him and dealt with those first 2 weeks miss because he is on fire. Derek Favors, yeah, the panic is eased. 35 minutes, 16 and 10 with 2 blocks. This is the guy that you drafted. Let's hope that he doesn't have any sort of shit mattress problems moving forward or any weird knee injuries that we've never heard of. Because when he plays, the numbers are there. The restriction's done. And you know that I'm a massive Rod fan. Rod Hood, 33 minutes, 24 and 4, 2 steals, 4 triples. He's really, really good. And I know that you know that, and I know that you know that I know that, or that I think that. But not many people do. You need to spread the word of Rod to lots of people because he is very good. Rudy Gobert had a decent game, 11 boards, not much offense, but 3 or 4 from the line is good and 3 blocks. And Trey Lyles with a nice little 10 and 6 cameo in his bench role. I really liked what Dante Exum did here too. He played 24 minutes, split the time with Shelvin Mack, who played the 24 as well. They both had 6 points and both had 5 assists, but I thought Exum was more aggressive. He's more aggressive defensively. He got 6 points on 4 shots. Mack got 6 points on 11 shots. Hill's not going to be out long term, so I don't think it's really going to make too much of a difference, but in the next game, I wouldn't be shocked to see Exum play more as the point guard and play more minutes than Shelvin Mack, because Mack's been okay, but he was clearly outplayed by Exum here, and Exum showed some creativity, some ability to get shots to other people and be efficient, and looked really good. So that was encouraging for the Jazz in that sense. On to the Hornets. Kemba Walker is on fire, 21, 5 and 6 with 4 steals. Marv Williams had a real bounce back here, 30 minutes, 19 and 8 with 5 triples. This is last season's Marvin Williams. I had a big talk about Marvin Williams the other day about maybe who he is, but this is a nice bounce back performance from him here. He should be owned in definitely most leagues. Michael Kidd-Gilchrist played through his back issue, and the defensive numbers appear to be sustainable. Another 2 steals, another block, another 9 rebounds. Now, he only had 2 points on 0 of 5 shooting, but if you are drafting or owning Michael Kidd-Gilchrist with the thought process of getting scoring, then you're approaching it the wrong way. You want rebounding as a small forward. You want defensive stuff, and it's coming. And it's coming in a really big way. So that's great to see that happening for him. You know I'm a big Cody Zeller fan as well. 12 and 3 with a block in 27 minutes. By no means is he a must-own guy, but there's differences in what my thought process is. If this was the playoff time, owning a guy like Cody Zeller who's going to give me that back-end value, I would really appreciate it. At this point in the season, a guy who's maybe your 12th best player, you might want to stream that in. You might want to use it for an upside play rather than a solid guy whose upside is maybe top 110 and whose floor is top 140, as opposed to a guy at this point of the year where you want a top 70 upside, and if he falls outside the top 200, you don't care. So he's always a name, especially as the season gets tighter and you get towards the playoffs, that you're going to be able to get these reliable numbers. Now, there was no Roy Hibbert out there, but Zeller is the superior player to Hibbert, and I think he's still going to get those 25 to 26 minutes on most nights. A nice night from Spencer Hawes as well, 11 points in 19 minutes for Spencer. And Frank Kaminsky actually looked pretty decent too, 13 and 5. And I am marginally on the Kaminsky bandwagon. I think that he can be a useful guy that's, a 25-minute-a-night player who can be a fantasy contributor with some blocks and threes and some points. So keep an eye on him, maybe for your 14s at the moment. Philadelphia and Indiana, the Pacers, they get the victory. They needed it, but they had to go to overtime. And again, the Sixers should have won this game. Bob Cove, he's back. Yeah, he's back. 23 and 6, 5 triples, a steal and a block on 8 of 16 shooting. And he's one of the most, how am I trying to phrase this? The best, I took 5 seconds to think of the word best. He's one of the best examples of why you don't panic when someone has a bit of a shooting slump in the first 4 games of the year. Because that will happen to players. Definitely. But now, look at him. He was getting those big steal numbers. His shot attempts were there. His rebounds were there. His blocks was there. So everything was working in his favour. The shot just wasn't falling. And now it is. And you got 23 and 6 with 5 triples and a steal and a block, and you're laughing. He's only owned in 59% of leagues, Covington. He's key to what this team needs to do. They need threes. He might not play 32 every night, and he probably won't. He's probably a 27-minute guy, but that puts him around that top 100 mark. And he should be owned. Dario Saric had his best game since Ersan Ilyasova came across, a 14 and 12 double-double with 2 threes and 2 blocks. He obviously hadn't been doing that in the games prior. I would much rather Covington than Saric at this point, but I can understand the appeal of Saric being a guy that you want to own, but it feels like these games are very few and far between at this point. Not as few and far between as good games from Hollis Thompson, but he had one, 19 and 6 with 3 triples. He's just as likely to go 0 of 9 in the next game. Don't buy too much into that. And Gerald Henderson had 17 points too. Again, I'm not buying into that. Charlie Okafor, this is what he's going to do. He played 24 minutes. He had 15 points. He had 2 blocks. That's really nice. He scores a lot. But I can't see a situation where he's getting more minutes than this unless a Nerlens Noel trade comes. We know that Okafor's on a minutes restriction at the moment, and they want to try him next to Embiid, which could be a real disaster. He's definitely ownable. He's not owned on any of my teams, and he's not a must-own guy because there is a ceiling on what he can do, from a real life perspective and from a fantasy perspective as well. Spanish Chocolate, Sergio Rodriguez, not a good night there. 1 of 14 from the field for 2 points. But like I talked about with Covington earlier, he still got his 5 assists. He's still got his 3 steals. The lid was just on the basket. It just wouldn't go in. And it will be better than that, obviously, as we move forward. And Ersan Ilyasova only had the 6 in 21 minutes. The Pacers, big game from Jeff Teague. If I'm going to bag Teague for the poor games, I have to congratulate him for the big ones. 30 points, 9 assists, 2 steals, and 10 of 16 shooting and 9 of 10 from the line. A big performance there, and the Pacers needed it. But we do have to look at the level of competition as well to see exactly what happens when he plays against a team that's not the worst team in the NBA. Paulie George, pretty good as well, 28 and 8 with 2 triples. And Miles Turner, at least he got the 32 minutes, and he was good. 15 and 9, hit a 3, had 3 blocks. There's some really good numbers. After probably a lean week from Turner is the best way of putting that. Thad Young, is he droppable? In certain situations, yes. In a 10-team league, I can understand it. He only took 6 shots, and he is the 5th option in this starting lineup. He had 5 boards. He had 3 steals, and that's always where his values come from. And he had a block. He's been really poor though. I'm not sure that he's quite a must-own guy, but in 36 minutes to only take 6 shots, it just sort of shows his place in the pecking order. Monte Ellis doesn't shoot it anymore either, apparently. 40 minutes for Monte, 9 shots. Had 9 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists and a steal. I still do hold him for his ability to get the assists and to get some steals, but he's slowly slipping in terms of his overall value. And the CJ Miles November experience continued. 32 minutes for Miles, 12, 4 and 2 with 3 triples and a block. Shooting the ball well, but we know there's not going to be much long term here. He's getting some extra run and extra looks with Rodney Stuckey out, and when Stuckey returns, maybe a couple of minutes get shaved off Miles, and then an injury will happen, and then the form won't be there, then he won't hit his shots. This is a pretty standard CJ Miles, not thought process, but this is what he does. The Brooklyn Nets and the New York Knicks, I watched this game. It's fun. The Nets are fun. And they got out to a really, really hot start. And as is his modus operandi, Kenny Atkinson just spreads the minutes all around. And they got destroyed by the Knicks bench unit when Justin Hamilton and Brook Lopez weren't on. Now, Lopez on a back-to-back played just 24 minutes. I understand that they've got issues with Lopez, but the dude hasn't been injured in 3 years. He's not rehabbing from any injury. I don't understand. They could have had this victory easily. And I think some of the coaching from Atkinson cost them this game. Now, he's done a really, really good job, better than you could expect when you're running out Sean Kilpatrick as your starting point guard. I think anyone could have thought you'd be not only competitive, but destroying the Knicks. But you let them off the hook. You let them back into the game with whatever this long-term view is that I'm not 100% sure is necessary. Lopez is still getting it done. 24 minutes, 21 points, a 3 and 3 blocks. Only the 4 boards, but still getting the big numbers there. And Justin Hamilton, after I talked about him yesterday, saying he hadn't had a big game since the opener, he drained 5 threes and had 21 and 4 with a steal. He's still just a deeper league sort of guy, but you must love him if you've got him in a 16-team league with his ability to do what he does. Blocks and threes out of a big man is impressive. Rondé Hollis-Jefferson is back, I guess. 29 minutes for him, 8, 5, and 4 with a block, hit all 6 of his free throws. And there's not much offensive production. He didn't get a steal, but that sort of line is maybe not what you expect, but you're happy to get it. You get a block, you get 4 assists, which he's doing more of, you get the 5 rebounds. It's decent production. He can be looked at as being re-owned. I still don't understand what's happening with Trevor Booker. Another 3 steals for him. He's really active in the passing lanes. But this sort of steal rate is basically impossible to keep up. So it is going to regress, but he has to be owned at this point. Only the 5 points, but 6 boards and 3 steals is great. General Grievous Vasquez got cut, if you're unaware of that, with the Nets. I talked about that yesterday as well. Said I think this ankle injury is going to be a real problem and maybe prevent him ever getting back on the court this season. And then next minute he was gone completely. He's out. Yogi Ferrell is in. And Isaiah Whitehead sat this one out with his concussion. So Ferrell made his NBA debut. 5 points, 3 assists in 14 minutes, but Kilpatrick got the start. I was all aboard Kilpatrick for DFS today, and he wasn't great. 7, 4, and 5. The assists are nice, but his shooting wasn't falling, and normally he's a really efficient scorer. I think he's a 12-team league guy, at least until Jezza Lynn comes back, but for now, he should be in that spot. Bojan Bogdanovic, 3 steals. He probably won't get another 3 combined for the rest of the year, but had 6 points, and I don't think that he is a 12. Or he's definitely not a 10-team league guy. I apologise to people that play in 10-team leagues because my default is always to say 12-team. He's definitely not a 10-team league guy either. The Knicks, a very weird situation. It was their bench, it was Porzingis, and it was Melo that got them back into this game. Melo played 34. He went 22 and 7 and had 2 threes, a steal, and a block on a big night. And Billy Hernangomez, who'd been out of the rotation, he played 15 minutes, and this was this bench unit that got them back in. 14 and 6 with a steal and 2 blocks. A huge night from him. His best performance of his NBA career. But he'd been out of the rotation. So I don't know what to make of it. You would think that he moves back in ahead of Maurice Ndua, which is a dumb decision in itself to not have him in there above Ndua. But I don't think anything outside of a 20-team league will want to be really caring about Hernangomez at this point. Derrick Rose only got the 22 minutes. As I said, the bench ran things. He had 14, 3, and 4. So it's not like he was playing poorly in terms of accumulating stats, but the team was struggling, and Joakim Noah went 2, 7, and 4 in his 21 minutes, and his minutes are like a yo-yo at this point. Courtney Lee, 13 in 31 minutes, and then there's just a whole bunch of nothingness from the rest of the team. Some people have asked me these box scores that you can see when you're watching the video, where are they from? They're from basketballmonster.com. These are the box scores that we have on the site, so check them out. Minnesota and Orlando, the Timberwolves. They were as red hot as a team could be. Hit 57% of their three-pointers, led by Zach LaVine, who went 7 of 9 from 3. He had 37 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, and a steal. Huge night after about 2 or 3 real stinkers in a row. Got himself back in business, and you're happy about that. Same with Gorgie Jeng, who almost triple-doubled. 12, 11, and 7, 2 steals and a block. Perfect stuff. That's top 30 Gorgie Jeng, and that had been lacking in the last couple. And Karl Anthony Towns with a huge night. 20 and 11, 2 steals, a block, and a 3. Just big nights from all their guys. And I haven't even talked about Wigo, who hit another 2 threes. He had 29, 6 assists, 4 rebounds. It is definitely all coming together for Andrew Wiggins at the moment. Third year is the key, guys. When you look at these third and fourth year, but third year is when stuff really does start to happen, and I'm going to be scared when Karl-Anthony Towns and Porzingis and these guys are in their third year next season. There's going to be some fireworks, but Wiggins is getting it going after a pretty disappointing first couple of games, a disappointing preseason. The assists are coming, the three-pointers are coming, and this is turning into about 3 months of solid three-point shooting from Wiggins. He needs to do it more, though. The big actionable situation here in Minnesota is at point guard. I know that plenty of you were quick to send me a tweet after Chris Dunn's first game to tell me, LOL, Ricky Rubio not getting his job back. Dunn, he looks really out of place, doesn't he? Yes, he does. 17 minutes for Chris Dunn. 2 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 blocks. But it's not just the stats, because he has put up some stats. He just can't run anything. He can't run an offense. He looks out of place. He can't shoot. He can't score. He can't run things. And for the second consecutive game, Tyus Jones comfortably outplayed him. And this is what I mentioned when Rubio went down. Don't be surprised if the Timberwolves realise that Tyus Jones is the better option to run things. And I think Tom Thibodeau's realised it. 2 games in a row for 30 plus for Jones, and 2 big games, 10, 4, and 5 with 2 steals and 2 threes. I think that if you own Dunn, and it's not a keeper situation, he can go. You can add Jones in a 12-team league, and you might get some use out of him for these next couple of games. Now, I could be wrong, and Thibodeau could go back and play 30 plus to Dunn, but I wouldn't be shocked if Thibodeau makes the change and goes, well, Tyus has got to do this now. Or even if he doesn't make the change and just plays Dunn as a starter and plays him 15 minutes and plays Jones the rest of the time. Because Jones is clearly getting it done. He's clearly the superior player at this point in both their careers. He's also 3 years younger than Chris Dunn too. And I do believe he's a better player. And I think if Chris Dunn had have gone in Tyus Jones' draft class, they would have been drafted 2 or 3 spots apart. Dunn wouldn't have been a top 5 pick. They would have been in the same sort of spot. And if Dunn goes in next year's draft, he's outside the lottery as well. It speaks to the level of play in this year's draft. Whether he is their point guard of the future or not, who knows? But again, we just know that this is not impacting Ricky Rubio's future, at least for this season. Maybe something happens as we head into January or February, especially February, which is when the rookies really pick it up. But Dunn's got a long way to go. And Jones has, I don't know if he's officially stepped ahead of him, but his play on the court has definitely put him ahead of him. And that's interesting, especially because I own Tyus Jones in a 30-team league, so I'm pretty excited about that. Shabazz Muhammad, 13 points in 19 minutes. And we saw the Cole Aldrich efficiency show, not in terms of scoring efficiency, but getting stats in limited minutes. 5 boards, 2 assists, and 1 block in his 12 minutes, which he made a habit of with the LA Clippers last season. Not getting enough playing time to be much of a use this year, though. On to the Magic, they are a mess. Nick Vucevic with a massive game, 24, 14, and 6 with a block and a 3, big percentages, and we know he does this. We know he's a top 30 player. We just don't know what Frank Vogel's going to do on a night-to-night basis. I have used this argument plenty of times as well. What's worse, Nick Vucevic's defense or Bismack Biyombo's offense, or Serge Ibaka's general play? And people, you got to bring Biyombo to start because Vucevic is bad on defense. Imagine how that offense would look. Biyombo, Ibaka, Gordon, Fournier, Payton. I reckon you'd get an offensive rating of about 40, 50 maybe. Vucevic has to play. They don't play him enough. The whole thing is just a complete mess from the front office perspective. And I've harped on that a lot. But Vucevic, he's going to be up and down because they're going to jerk him around. Now, Biyombo did play 26 here, so they shared the court together. And that's okay. I don't mind that, especially with how bad Ibaka's playing. 3 points for Biyombo, 8 boards and a block in 26 minutes. And if he started, I reckon that's what you get out of him. And it's not really that useful. As for Ibaka, he only played the 27, 11 and 2 with 2 blocks. So he might as well retire. He's 35 years old. It's almost no doubt. Now, he just is not anywhere near the same player. He'll be better than this. I know that there's fit issues. There's you're on a new team issues. There's all this sort of stuff. But this is not a 7-game view. This is have you seen Serge over the last 3 years? Have you seen the drop in everything that he's doing? Because he's not 26 years old. Whoever signs him to a contract next year will give them the Memorial Ryan Anderson Shit Contract of the Year award. It could get real ugly. You have to hold him in leagues. You can't just drop him at this point. I don't really think he's a buy low, though, because I don't think you're going to be able to go low enough to even make it worth your while. Evan Fournier struggling a little bit as well, his efficiency, and some of that's to do with who he's playing with, I think. 13-3 with 2 triples in 28 minutes. And Aaron Gordon, probably his worst night of the year, 7-4 in 31 minutes with a block. Just play Gordon and Vucevic together and play Biyombo as the backup there, and you're done. But unfortunately, we've got Gordon playing out of position. We've got just ridiculous decisions from a front office. We've got threats of Jeff Green starting, and that's when you know things are really going to start to go downhill. Good game from Lord Alfred Payton, though, 18-3-7 in his 27 minutes, and he'd been definitely dropping off in the last couple of games. So good to get a little bit of a bounce back from him. The Boston Celtics and the Washington Wizards. This so begins our string of blowout games. This was over in the first quarter. Avery Bradley still played 38 minutes though, 21, 3 and 2, but filled it up in the other areas too. 3 triples, 2 steals and a block. Super efficient shooting. That is going to have to come down. So beware, there will be an Avery Bradley crash at some point. Big Isaiah Thomas night too. Not quite as efficient, but 23, 6 and 10 is big. And how's Marcus Smart going? Now the shooting wasn't there, 7 of 18, but he had 20 points. I think he had 18 in the third quarter. 4 triples, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal. You know that Marcus Smart's one of my pet project sort of guys, and I've got him in quite a few leagues, especially in the punt field goal setting. But he's really starting to look good, and he started the second half again over Jaylen Brown, who's looked terrible the last 2 games. After a really good performance against Cleveland and LeBron, he's struggled mightily in the last 2 games, and I think that I would assume that he will lose that starting job in the next game and go back to a bench role. So any Jaylen Brown 12-team fancies, you can probably move on from them, and you might even be able to grab Marcus Smart. The Brad Stevens front court mystery box was at its best. Amir Johnson went back to 24 minutes and put up a good line, a 1-1 with 11 points. But which Amir are we going to get? Are we going to get the Amir Johnson that plays 24 minutes, or are we going to get the one that plays 18 minutes? Now, Al Horford's still out with his concussion issue. Well, not a concussion issue, with concussion. So we don't know if he's going to be back. And Tyler Zeller, who'd put in 3 or 2 really strong games, 27-plus minutes, big performances, he started and he played 14. 6 and 2 with 1 block. I don't think it was his fault that they got smashed. But what I loved, and I need to remind myself, don't get overly excited, because it is the Brad Stevens mystery box of doom. Kelly Olynyk, first game back for the season. Now, I am an irrational Kelly Olynyk fan. He played 26. He only had 2 points. He had 6 rebounds. He had 1 assist. Him and Al Horford are their best front court pairing. I believe that is the way that they need to run that. I don't believe that Brad Stevens will do it, or he won't do it consistently enough for Olynyk to have 12-team value. But 16s, grab him. 14-team leagues, grab Kelly Olynyk. He is better than Tyler Zeller. He is better than Amir Johnson. He is better than Jonas Jerebko. He's better than Jordan Mickey. He's got a very tantalizing fantasy skill set. And I would love for them to just go, all right, it's Horford and Olynyk. Let's play him 28 minutes next to Al, and let's work him into things rather than 17 one night, 24 the next night. Very Fred Hoiberg-esque. I guess Steven started it before Hoiberg. So yeah, look, really interesting to get him back into the action and get him back playing and have him play 26 minutes off the bat. Really going to watch how they use him moving forward. But excitement there happening. On the Wizards, I talked about it already. Marcus Thornton played 34 minutes. 16, 4 and 4 with 3 steals and 2 triples, and that is a lovely line. It's really good, but it's attached to Marcus Thornton. So that's why I can't look at it and go, you know what, this is probably going to keep happening. If we hear, they're moving Markieff Morris to the bench, who's had some real stinkers of shooting nights recently, and he only played the 17 minutes here after picking up a couple of early fouls, then they might run Thornton there. But Thornton also got the extra minutes because Brad Beal had to leave the game with an injury. I'm sure you're all stunned. He had a hamstring problem. He lasted 11 minutes. So Thornton got some extra run there. Thornton is more of your 16-team league guy at the moment, who you'd be thrilled with that sort of production, but he's going to be a 16-minute-a-night guy. What I also really, really enjoyed from Scott Brooks, and that's not a phrase that I use loosely or often, is that Tomas Satoransky played 32 minutes. I've been caping for this all off-season, that he is their backup 1, he is their backup 2, and he is their backup 3. And that's exactly how they're using him at the moment after inexplicably not even having him in the rotation to start the year. So Waugh goes out, Satoransky plays 30 minutes. Buell goes out, Satoransky plays 30 minutes. Really, really good to see that they're using him. Now, he had 4-4-4. He's deferring, but he's playing really good defense. He can set guys up, and he can do quite a lot of things. Just watch this space. The thing is that Brad Beal, I don't think he's missing any time with his hamstring injury. It seems okay. He's having an MRI on Thursday, which, according to everything we're hearing, is going to come back pretty clean. So I don't think there's going to be an opening for Satoransky. But he's forcing himself into that role where it's him and Thornton are the two main guys off the bench. They'll go small. They'll push Porter to the 4 to allow these guys onto the bench and limit the minutes for Jason Smith and Andrew Nicholson, at least until Jan Mahinmi comes back. That's how they'll start to run things. And then play Mark Heath at the 5 a little bit as well. And that is going to give Satoransky some minutes. So keep an eye on that. Also, across the weekend, I'd be remiss to mention this, John Wall's sitting out a game. I don't know which one, but he's sitting out a game. So that means it is all aboard the Satoransky train. So have a look. Now, if it's Saturday, it's probably not going to work out ideally because of all the teams that are playing, and you won't even be able to fit Satoransky into your active lineup. But have a look at it and investigate it, and it's an interesting trend to keep an eye on. Trey Burke also got ridiculously hot playing off the ball, 7 of 9 for 18 shooting. But if we know anything about Trey Burke, we know that's not going to happen all that often. Gortat had 13 and 9, and Johnny Wall ejected for the second straight game. 31 minutes for Wall, 19, 3 and 7. At 1-1, so a big line. But he got a flagrant 2 on Marcus Smart for a ridiculous play, just sort of a jump over the top, hit him in the head. There's a chance that he gets suspended. Again, he didn't get suspended for the first one, for the referee bump. There's a chance he gets suspended here. I would say probably not, but there is a chance that can happen. So keep an eye on it. And that might, you know what, even if he gets suspended, it might be a game he was going to rest anyway, so it might not have any impact. But again, we're keeping an eye on Tomas Satoransky and even Marcus Thornton in that case, especially with Beal potentially down. Sheldon McClellan's going to get into the rotation across the weekend as well. Don't be surprised to see that. The Chicago Trainwrecks against the Atlanta Hawks. Jim Butler was really good. Real good. 39 points, 4 triples, 4 rebounds, 7 assists, 6 steals on 13 of 24 shooting. It is a ridiculous line. He also was 44% from 3. Dwayne Wade went 25, 3 and 3 with 2 threes and 5 steals on 10 of 17. Ridiculous performance. And then the rest of the team was ridiculous in the other direction. No, that's not true, because Taj Gibson was solid. He played 37 minutes, went 13 and 6 and had 2 steals and 2 blocks, and that is super useful for the Bulls and for your fantasy team. And he's up to 70% ownership, Taj. It should be more. Rajon Rondo is terrible. I know he led the league in assists last season, but he was terrible then, and he is terrible now. 34 minutes for Rondo, 2 of 10 shooting, 6, 5, and 7. Benched early for Isaiah Cannon. Isaiah Cannon's not good, but Rondo was benched for him. Now let's see what Hoiberg does with this team moving forward. They need Valentine in to play some of these minutes. They need to see what Jaren Grant can do. Rondo is not the answer unless the question is who is the worst starting point guard in the NBA. He is atrociously bad. Before this game, the Bulls were 17.4 points per 100 possessions better when Rondo's miserable ass was sitting on the bench. Better. That is a huge amount, and it's a very small sample size, but it is indicative that he is that large and he is that bad. Do you drop him? Well, no, because if you're getting 30 plus minutes out of Rondo, maybe you get 7 or 8 assists and 1.5 steals and 5 or 6 rebounds. And brutalized percentages and low scoring, all that stuff's true. But those assists can be really valuable. But he's venturing into Tony Roden territory, into Terrence Jones, into Lance Stevenson territory, when the minutes are there, the stats will come, but he's just so bad of a player that eventually someone's just going to go, you know what, screw this guy. He's just killing us every time he's out there. Killing us. And Hoiberg's starting to get that feeling with him. Bob Porter, as I mentioned, was dreadful in his playing time, 0 points in his 14 minutes. And Robin Lopez, the minutes are definitely back up there. 30 for him, 6 and 5. The minutes are back, but the production's not. And I'm not sure it's ever going to get there. So he is a borderline 12-team league guy. This game, I didn't watch it all, because I was watching the Knicks to start off with, but flipped it over in the second quarter, I believe. And Thabo Sefolosha was ridiculous. I believe he had 18 points before he missed a shot. He played 29 minutes and had 20 points, 2 triples, 5 rebounds, 3 steals and a block on 8 of 9 shooting. It's not happening again. But he has been really good this year. Really good. Getting a lot of steals. And if your team's structured in the right way, in a punt point setting especially, Thabo has use in a 12-team and maybe even a 10-team format. But the reliability shouldn't be that high because there'll be some nights he plays 22 minutes. I'm going to get shouted down for this. He is a better player than Kent Bazemore. He should start over Kent Bazemore. And for everyone who tweeted me yesterday, Kent Bazemore's not shit, he's great, look how good he is. Well, Kent Bazemore had 3 points in this game. 3. Thabo's a better player, in my opinion, with what he does. In terms of fantasy, I'd rather have Bazemore, but Bazemore's not that good. Good bloke, not a good player. 3 points for Bazemore, 7 assists is really nice, and a steal and a block is good too. So I've got to give him credit there, but just not active offensively. Paulie Millsap, huge line, 16 and 11, 6 assists, 2 threes, a steal and 2 blocks. And Dwighty Howard, he just embarrassed the Bulls with the rebounding, 18 and 10 with 3 steals and 2 blocks. And he's been a fantastic draft for whoever grabbed him in a punt free throw build and grabbed him late because he's doing everything you wanted him to do. Kyle Korver was back after his child's birth, and as predicted, the child's name started with K. That is a thing that they do. I believe it's a thing that JJ Redick does as well. It's a little creepy. The white 3-point shooters naming all their kids starting with K, whatever their name is. I'm waiting for one of them to name their kid Neil with a silent K. JJ, Kyle, if you're listening, next kid, Neil. K-N-E-I-L. Let's go for it. Korver hit 2 threes, he had 11 points, but you can do better in 12-team leagues. Mike Muscala, another solid performance, 11 and 6 in 16, probably a 14-team league guy. And Timmy Hardaway also had 11 points. And we got to see some scoring out of Malcolm Delaney, who you know that I'm a pretty big fan of. Not Dennis Schroeder's best night from an efficiency standpoint, and that's not really saying much, actually, because he went 5 of 19. But 13, 7, and 3, the counting stats are still there. And after his last 2 big games, I reckon you can give him a pass on an inefficient night. Toronto at OKC. Well, DeMar DeRozan, after slipping behind the 30-point mark in the last game, he said, what are you guys talking about? This is who I am every game now. 37, 4, and 6, 3 steals on 59% shooting. This guy is ludicrous. It is bound to come down, but he's basically unstoppable at the moment. And it's weird because in the playoffs, he was the exact opposite. It was like, can this guy get off the court because he's killing us every time he shoots? Now it is just give him the ball, get out of the way, and it's a bucket. It's pretty good to watch. Kyle Lowry, 19, 9, and 13 with 5 threes and 1 block. Comfortably his best game, but the shooting was not ideal. And Pat had a big night as well. 13 points with 3 triples in 33 minutes. Pascal Siakam really struggled here against the Thunder. Only 13 minutes for 4 points. And Jakob Poeltl got another start with Jonas Valanciunas out, and he struggled for the second consecutive game. 14 and 2, but never fear, because Bebe Nogueira is here. 29 minutes for Bebe. 10 and 7, 2 steals and 2 blocks. I think it's been 3 years I've been doing this podcast, and I've been telling you about this guy for a long time. He is good. He needs to stay healthy, but he is good. And he should be the starting center until Valanciunas comes back. And he should be the backup center after that. And deeper leagues, you need to look at him. You need to own him. In a 16-team league, you need Nogueira. He's better than Poeltl at this point. He might be better than Poeltl moving forward. He is good. We just haven't really seen him before. But he is good. He's athletic. He's ridiculously long. His defense is good. His rim protection is good. And he's got a little bit of scoring touch. He hit all 5 of his shots in this one for those 10 points. Very, very impressive 2 games in a row. And when the young backups outplay the other young starters for 2 games in a row, Tyus Jones style, I get pretty interested. But Nogueira is a guy that I've been big on for quite a while, and I'm glad to see it sort of paying off. A guy who isn't good is Damari Carroll, 10 and 4 in 22 minutes. Either his knees are completely busted, or whatever magic juice the Hawks were giving him is not there anymore, because he can't even play minutes anymore. It's weird. He is not a 12-team league guy. Terrence Ross was an extraordinarily late scratch in this one, so I was excited. Let's give Normie Powell all his minutes, and they did. They played Norm Powell 23 minutes, and not much came of it. 9 points and a steal, but at least he got into the rotation. And I am a big Norm Powell fan. I think he's a better player than Damari Carroll. Maybe right at this moment, Carroll's marginally better. Give it 6 months and that position will change. On the Thunder, Russ, huge. 36, 7 and 7, 1 steal, 2 blocks, and 9 of 26 from the field. It's probably not ideal, especially Russ when you're taking 12 3-point attempts when you can't hit them. Not good. Steve Adams was good. 14 and 12. Vic Oladipo, this is what we want from Oladipo. 18 and 8, 5 triples, 2 assists, and 2 steals. We need the rebounds, the assists, the steals, the blocks starting to come. That's good. He was a really great buy low target. He's going to continue to get better, and I think he's going to have a monster 2017. Domantas Sabonis, I don't think we've got any concerns about him being locked in as this 25 to 28 minute starter. He played 28 here, had 7 points, 4 assists, 1 3 and 1 steal, and that's useful. Is he a 12-team league guy? Well, I went and picked up Marquise Chris in a lot of situations, and we'll talk about him later. If I remember after this, I will probably go out and switch him for Sabonis in the opportunities where I can. That I think that Sabonis is going to be really steady and continue to improve. Enes Kanter, working out what Enes Kanter is going to do is one of the great mysteries in life. Only 19 minutes here for 8 points, nothing else, not even a rebound for literally one of the best rebounders in the NBA, which is such a weird stat. But hit all 3 of his shots, hit all 2 of his free throws, and so the efficiency was there. Is Enes Kanter droppable? I reckon in a 10-team league, in an 8-team league, bang, go. In a 10-team league, I think it's borderline. In a 12-team league, I think you keep him. Andre Robertson, not much to love there. He's a poor man's Cephalosha at this point. And Jeremy Grant had 12 minutes, 7 points and 1 block. And I know that you've cut him in 12-team leagues if you happen to own him there. Detroit and Phoenix. Big one from Andre Drummond, 18 and 14 with a steal and a block and 4 triples, and he went 4 of 6 from the line. So the free throws have definitely improved a little bit. Not enough to take it out of punt territory, but enough. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. I told you this guy. He had 1 point in the last game. He had 27 here. 5 triples, 6 rebounds. A big night in 42 minutes for KCP. Marcus Morris played 40 minutes as well, 16, 3 and 2 with 2 steals and a 3. I wrote a big thing on him today on Basketball Monster on the stock report, so you can go and check out my thoughts on Marcus Morris. But my thoughts are basically that what he's doing is quite unsustainable. So has to be owned now, but let's see how it goes moving forward. Another 24 minutes for Johnny Lua, 11 and 9 with 2 threes. Just that, like Cody Zeller. I feel like he's going to get constant numbers, which is great around the playoffs, but maybe the upside's not quite there, unless, say, Toby goes down and he's forced into a starting role. Stan Johnson was brutal, and he's been terrible all season, and as per usual, Ish Smith's shooting was horrendous. He did give you 7 assists, 4 steals, and 2 blocks, but you absorbed this issue with Smith when you drafted him and when you added him, because he is just a percentage killer. On to the Suns. We can't trust anything that Earl Watson says or does at all, really, with any of his maneuvers. Marquise Chris is the starter moving forward. And that doesn't mean shit, though, for this team, because he played 14 minutes after playing less than 20 in his first start and scored 0 points with 5 rebounds. Now, he looks absolutely lost, so that's fair enough. And we'll see if they persist with him as the starting center, or as the starting power forward. But I don't understand getting him in there, let's start him, let's move to the future, and then playing Jared Dudley 30 minutes. Now, Dudley was really good, so maybe I understand it in this sense. But 19 and 5 for Dudley, 4 triples, a steal, and 2 blocks. He's not going to do that again. I'll give Chris one more game, but if they go with him under 20 minutes a night, then what's the point of elevating him into a starting role and keeping him there? If you're going to play him bench minutes, what's the purpose? I'm sticking to my guns that by the end of the season, Dragon Bender is going to be a starting power forward, and that he is the better player out of this too. He only played the 8 minutes in this one because Earl Watson decided we'll play Alex Len 16 in the last game, but in this one, let's play him 37. And I do maintain that Alex Len is good, 16 and 14 with 3 steals and a block, but he gets the coach's jerk off pretty. That sounded horrible. He gets the coach's early hook really quickly. Didn't happen in this one, and he put up big numbers. Is it easy enough to own him in 12-team leagues? Absolutely not, because Tyson Chandler's going to come back after, unfortunately, his mother passed away. So my condolences to Tyson and his family. When he comes back, he's going to get back into 28 to 30 minutes, and Len's going to play 19 to 20. And even in the last game with Chandler not there, Len played 17. So you can't rely on anything that Earl Watson does at this point. TJ Watson, he had another 18 points. Not a great night across the rest of the board. Some people will drop him. I can guarantee you that. Two straight bad games. Well, not even bad. 2 straight not awesome games in a row. And the questions come, do I drop TJ Warren? And if it happens, just grab him and attack his owner. Mate, can I just have TJ Warren? I'll give you Ish Smith. I'll give you Enes Kanter. Attack his owner after these 2 potentially subpar games. Brandon Knight played 17 minutes, 14 points and 3 assists. That's usable. The minutes are horrible. And the minutes have been horrible all season. Is he going to continue to play at this sort of level? Who knows? What's the minutes going to be like? Earl Watson doesn't even know the answer to that at this point. Knight is still a tentative hold. Devin Booker, he did more than just score, which is great after the last performance, but only 11 points, 2 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal and 2 blocks, and that kept his value going. So a pretty nice performance from Evan Turner there. And PJ Tucker, only the 20 minutes there. They had PJ Tucker guarding Andre Drummond in this game. So why wouldn't you do that when you've got Alex Len, Marquise Chris, and Dragon Bender on your team, who are all big men who can guard centers? So why wouldn't you put a 6'5" small forward on him who's 31 years old, coming off back surgery? Why wouldn't you do that, Earl Watson? The next game, the Houston Rockets and the San Antonio Spurs. Massive win for the Rockets. Jim Harden is fantastic. Didn't get the 30 points, but had 24, 12, and 15. The Rockets are a disgrace almost when he's off the court, but when he's on, he's basically unstoppable. Who can stop him? For fantasy, for DFS, he's matchup proof. He does anything that needs to be done. He's fantastic. Almost as Ryan Anderson a game as you can get. 20 points with 4 triples and 8 rebounds, and then not much else, just the 1 steal. Well, Trevor Ariza had 9 points, but chimed in with his 4 steals as well, so good numbers there. Clint Capella, Nene, and Montrezl Harrell all were plagued by fouls. 4 fouls for Nene, and Capella kept Capella to 18 and Nene to 21 minutes, but unsurprisingly, Capella more productive than Nene, as he is basically every game. 12 and 5 for Capella with a block, still very much ownable. He also got some hacking issues too, but he is very much ownable in 12-team leagues, assuming you're punting that free throw percentage. 15 points for Eric Gordon, but the biggest performance, I think, or of note, is Sam Decker, who looks really good at the moment. 18 minutes for Decker, 10 and 7, with a steal and a block and 2 threes. Now, they went with Corey Brewer starting again. I ranted about this decision yesterday. He was worse in this game. Why start him playing 14 minutes? Makes no sense. He had 0 points, 2 rebounds, and 1 assist. Missed all 5 of his shots. Decker is making a case to potentially be ahead of Brewer, although Decker's more of a 4, but he can play some 3. He's looking really good, Sam Decker. He's aggressive, he hustles, he plays some defense, and I think he can shoot. I think he's going to be a good player. This is basically his rookie season. I think that Decker's going to be a really good player. So I think the Rockets have got something there. On to the Spurs. Kawhi was brilliant. 34 and 7, 2 blocks, 4 triples. But aside from Kawhi, there's a lot of issues here. LaMarcus Aldridge, 14 and 5. He has not really got anything cracking at all this season. Pau Gasol played 13 minutes. He went 2 and 7. And is he a guy that you absolutely drop? No, because there's never really a guy, unless a guy's out for the season, that you go, I just drop this guy for whatever reason, because it needs to be someone that you're bringing in. But if there's someone else out there that you want, I just don't see Gasol getting the minutes on a consistent enough basis. 13 minutes, 2.7 rebounds is a horrible return. Really bad. So evaluate that. Dan Green was back. And I think what would warm the hearts of fantasy owners, the ones who haven't irrationally wiped him from their I'm never touching him again, the ones who aren't doing that, and I apologise if that's some of you who are listening, but never have that attitude. It is a terrible attitude for fantasy, because Danny Green was a top 50 guy the year before, struggled last season, but if you can get a guy who's got top 50 upside at pick 130 or off the waiver wire, who cares what he did last season? It makes no difference whatsoever. He doesn't give a shit if he affected your fantasy team. And he'll come out and do this, have 2 threes, 4 steals, 1 block. He's the best shot blocking guard in the NBA. He's one of the best exponents of the triple one. Him and Draymond, the 2 D Greens, they're the best triple one guys in the NBA. And yeah, his scoring won't always be there. His shot doesn't always fall. But the defensive numbers you get is really useful. Have a look around. He's back. He played 26 minutes, which is really key to me coming back off a leg injury. A lot of times when you come back from a leg injury, they ease you in with a smaller minutes load. 26 minutes is pretty good first up. I think with the way that John Simmons and the way that Kyle Anderson struggled in the early part of the season, they're going to have Green playing a lot more here. There's also Tony Parker out also. I think he's a guy you want to own in 12-team leagues. As for Simmons, he had 9 in his 21. Kyle Anderson was poor. Nicola Laprovatola had 5 points in his 14 minutes, and Paddy Mills started and played a lot of minutes, which is not something that Pop normally does. 34 minutes for Pat, 8 points, 3 rebounds, 10 assists. Now, Tone Parker is likely to be back for the next game. Parker's not a guy you must add. Mills is not a guy you must hold, though. Mills will probably go down to mid, lowish 20s in minutes and be okay, but this is probably his best game since Parker's been out. Definitely his most minutes anyway. Spurs are in a bit of trouble. The Portland Trailblazers and Los Angeles Clippers, I've got nothing to say. The Blazers got destroyed. There is nothing to gain from looking at this unless you want me to talk about Noah Vonleh starting, playing 26 minutes and grabbing 11 rebounds. Well done, Noah. Otherwise, it was a blowout from the start of the game. Lillard was poor. McCollum was poor. Plumlee was terrible. Forget about this game and move on. But I think you should own Mo Harkless. That's my one takeaway. On to the Clippers. Similar thing. Look, no one needs to play minutes. Didn't matter for Blake Griffin, who went 22, 3, and 5 with 2 steals and a block in 26 minutes. And Paul had 19, 4, and 7 with 3 threes in 23 minutes. Great stuff. 16 and 9 with 3 blocks for DeAndre Jordan. Also awesome in that limited time frame. But it was just such a blowout that this game, it just didn't matter. The next game, pretty much the same thing. The Dallas Mavericks and the Golden State Warriors. The Mavericks were without Wes Matthews, JJ Barea, Devin Harris, Andrew Bogut, Dirk Nowitzki, and Darren Williams. So they started Seth Curry. They started Dorian Finney-Smith, Justin Anderson, Dwight Powell, the pencil Harrison Barnes. Good nights from Seth, as we mentioned. Dwight Powell was good, and he's a player I like. 14 and 9 with 2 steals in 26 minutes. But I think that with Dirk likely back, Bogut will be back. He's going to go back to being a 16-team dynasty type guy. The pencil took 20 shots, 25 and 8 with a 3 on 8 of 20 shooting. So not his most efficient night, but just pure volume, it got there. Nick Brasino played 24 minutes, had 3 points and 2 steals. He'll go back to being a DNP. And Dorian Finney-Smith, in his second career start, played 35 minutes and had 7 points. Not all that impressive there. I really like Justin Anderson, though. 41 minutes, 16, 8, and 7. Not good shooting-wise. 6 of 19 and 4 of 7 from the line. But those counting stats are nice. And one of his biggest positives is the fact that he can get blocks and threes, and he got none of them in this game. Watch him as a guy that, as they play more Dirk at the 5 and more Pencil at the 4, that he'll move on to the wing. And with how Wes Matthews is struggling, you just keep an eye on Justin Anderson. I think he's going to be quite a good player moving forward, and he does have good fantasy upside. On the Warriors, Steph Curry twisted an ankle, but he did come back in, so I think we're all okay there, thankfully. 24, 3, and 6 for Steph with 4 triples. Durant went 28, 4, and 10 and 4 with 4 triples. Draymond went 16, 10, and 4 with 2 blocks and 4 triples. And Klay Thompson, he rounded out the quartet of 4 triples. He had 4 triples for 20 points. So Durant, Curry, Green, and Thompson combined for 16 3-pointers. Now, we know that Klay had been really struggling. I wrote about him extensively in that stock report today, talking about how there is zero chance of these numbers holding. He was a 20% 3-point shooter when he shot over 40% in every one of his NBA seasons. And he knocked down his threes at 57% today. So he was a great buy low target. All of his other numbers were basically on par of where he normally is. His shots were the same. Everything was there. The shots just weren't falling, and they came good. 20 points, 4 triples for Klay is good. We saw Pat McCaw played 20 minutes, had 5 points and 3 assists. Deeper leagues, it's good to have him back because he's going to be a useful 16-team-ish sort of player. Not much else to talk about in a game again that was a blowout very early. I think both these games had the identical scorecard at one point, like 55-25 in the second quarter, something along those lines. Which is a ridiculously high margin that early in the game. All right, that is all 11 of those games done. I'm going to take a drink. I'm going to take a break because I'm a little bit dry after speaking about those 11. And then we'll be back to look at Thursday's DFS action. We're back. Let's look at the DFS action from Wednesday and talk about the perfect lineups. On FanDuel, we had Jeff Teague at 50.9, Bledsoe at 41.2, Zach Levine 48.3, DeMar DeRozan 52.8. Small forwards, Otto Porter 68.8, Jim Butler was 62.3, Dario Saric with 33.9, and Blake Griffin with 51.1, and Vucevic rounds it out with 51.8, and that would have given you a monster 461.1. Over on DraftKings, Jeffy Teague at 42, Zachary Levine at 52. Sorry, both those guys at 52. Jim Butler at 66.5, Jared Dudley at 33.75, Vucevic at 54.5, Kyle Lowry at 53.25, Otto Porter at 72.5, and DeMar DeRozan at 55. And that lineup would have given you 439.5. Pretty tough to get a lineup including Jared Dudley, I would have thought, into a perfect DFS lineup, but here we are, and it was a big performance from him and from the Suns to get that victory over the Pistons. Let's now look at the four games from the four games that are going to be on Thursday. Not a ton of DFS value coming out of these games, I don't think. we're going to see anywhere near those sort of scores in the perfect lineups. The first one we look at is Dwayne Wade heading back to the Miami Heat to play Miami in Miami. The Heat are favoured by 1.5. The Bulls are coming off that back-to-back. The total is 198 points. Let's look at the point guards. Goran Dragic is in a great spot here. A, because his salary is dropped by $300, and B, because he's got a match up against Rajon Rondo. He had a bit of a disappointing one in the last one against the Thunder. Dragic only the 16 points, but even including that, he is averaging 32 across his last three. And at 68, going up against Rondo, I'm all for it. As for Rondo, 5,500, still not happening for me. And Tyler Johnson at 49. I don't mind that at 49. He is averaging 30 across the last three, but not massively keen with Joshie Richardson coming back, who might just snag a little bit of his value away there. Speaking of Richardson, he's a minimum salary player. We don't know exactly where his minutes will be. He did play 25 in the last game, so I expect a little bit of an uptick. He's a tournament punt option that I don't imagine many people would be on. As for Wade, he's at 6,700. It's a back-to-back, but they don't think they're going to limit his minutes. I'm sure he's not going to want to limit his minutes going up against his former team. He could be able to put up some big numbers. At 6,700, he's a pretty decent option to look at. Now, the Heat have defended shooting guards pretty well, but Wade and Butler are basically the only source of offense for this team, so he's going to have to do quite a bit if they're even going to be competitive. Dion Waiters, with his minutes being reduced with Richardson's return, he is not worth looking at either. For the small forwards, Justice Winslow's at 4,800. That's not a big price. He hasn't been getting it done. The shot hasn't been falling, but at 4,800, I think that he's worth using to get some other higher price players in there. James Johnson had 30 in the last game. That was an abnormality, so I don't think we get excited there. And Jim Butler had 62 today. He's at 7,600. I think he might defer a little bit to Wade in this game, so I'm not sure that 7,600 is the right price for me to use Jim Butler. Power forwards, Luke Babbitt's the starter, but that doesn't mean anything. He's not worth looking at. I like Taj at 5,800, just a solid cash game power forward. He gave you 30 today. He's averaging 31 across the last three. I think you're going to get 27 to 28, and at 5,800, you're pretty much locked in at that number. So I'm happy with him there. Bob Portis, Nick Mirotic, forget about those two guys, especially Mirotic, who's just invisible at the moment. Hassan Whiteside at 8,200. I like that there. He's done well against the Bulls previously. A little bit of a down spell for him in terms of his absolute production, but playing against the Bulls often fixes what ails you. I don't mind 4,500 for Robin Lopez, especially with not many real cheap center options on the board. It's probably not the right spot to go cheap on this slate, but it is an option, and Lopez would be a guy in a tournament that I don't imagine many people would have. So that makes him, at least under consideration. The next game up is the New Orleans Pelicans searching for their first win against the Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks are favored by 4.5, and the total is 208 points. If we look at the point guards, there is a little bit to like here. I like Timmy Frazier at 55. He's getting back to those 30-minute nights and getting that 25 points, so he's worth looking at. Langston Galloway at 3,700. Well, since Lance Stephenson's been cut, Galloway's minutes have gone down, and Archie Goodwin's not playing. So if you can work that out, just send me a line and explain to me. Galloway's not great, but the Pelicans don't have the option of going great in the backcourt. They should be looking at him and considering him. At 3,700, he's a tournament punt play. Matthew Dellavedova at 4,400 has definitely been a little bit low recently, but this is as good a matchup as point guards can get going up against the Pelicans. And at 4,400, he doesn't really need much to produce value, so I do think that he is worth looking at. And Malcolm Brogdon at 3,700, yeah, he's had some decent games. Actually had 27 the last time these two teams met, so maybe in a tournament at that price, but the minutes are just not going to be there enough, I think. At shooting guard, love Giannis at 9,600. This is that's why you might choose a guy like Galloway or Dellavedova as your point guard, so you can get the 10,000 basically of Giannis into your lineup. A little bit quiet in his last game, only 27 points, but he's averaging 44 across the last 5. I think he's a real shot to get 50 here against the Pelicans. Each one more is at 4,400. He's not a bad cheap shooting guard as well. The minutes have been there, the 30-plus minutes, mid-20s in points is sort of where you're looking at. Not much GPP upside, though, for each one more. Bud Hield, no. Rashad Vaughn, double no. Small forwards, Tone Snell, minimum salary. He's playing 30 minutes plus, but in his last 5 games, which he's averaging 30 minutes, he's averaging 15 points. That's not even enough to break value at minimum salary. He's really bad. Now, this is an opportunity against the Pelicans for him to maybe break value, but seriously, it's a tournament-only flyer type thing. Same with Solomon Hill on the other side of things. I don't hate Mirza Teletovic at 3,700. It's strictly tournaments because it requires him getting hot, but maybe it happens. Dante Cunningham, who knows what Gentry's going to do with him. There's a lot of who knows in this game. Jason Kidd and Elvin Gentry. At power forward, Terrence Jones at 4,500. In a tournament, sure, he could play. He could play 30 minutes. He could play 20 minutes. He could not play at all. If he plays 30 minutes at 4,500, I'm confident you're going to return your value. If they go with Dante Cunningham and start him, or give big minutes to Omer Asik, like who knows what's going to happen with this team. So that makes Jones a tournament play to me only. Jabari at 6,100. Has had a pretty nice run lately. I think this is a good opportunity to use him as well. Tony Davis, 10,900. You can almost bang him in for 50 on most nights. I think that he's almost a lock or one of the first guys that I would put into a lineup when building it with this Thursday slate of games. At centre, Greg Monroe at 5,800. Are we going to get 18-minute Greg Monroe, or are we going to get 26-minute Greg Monroe? Because that makes a difference. If it's 26-minute Monroe, then we're getting 30-plus points, and at 5,800, it's worthwhile. But in a cash game, it's very, very tough to rely upon what Jason Kidd is going to do. Omer Asik, who's likely going to start, he's at just a tick over minimum salary. He is at 3,600, and you'll probably be surprised to know that he's averaging 17 points across the last 3. Now, that's not good. It's not even close to good. But at 3,600, it's almost enough for value. I'm pretty confident you can do better than Omer Asik, though. I know you can do better than Miles Plumlee. Let's look at the next game, which is the Golden State Warriors. They're taking on the Denver Nuggets. Now, the Warriors, it's a back-to-back for them. Now, Steve Kerr has come out and said we don't anticipate resting anyone unless something adverse happens with Steph's ankle, but it all seems fine on that side. The Warriors are favored by 6.5. The total is 221.5. So you look at it and you go, that's a big total. There's a real chance of Denver getting this victory. Second half back-to-backs in Denver, so teams have to travel to the altitude. There's a real chance of the Warriors getting knocked off there. So I'm not blowout worried here. I'm not necessarily worried about the Warriors coming in blowing out, and because it's a back-to-back, these guys played 28 minutes. I think Denver keeps this close until Michael Malone blows the last-second coaching decision to give him the loss. But there's a real chance of Denver at least keeping it close here and potentially getting the victory. So that does influence what you do with your lineups. At point guard, Emmanuel Mudiay is at 5,900. He's been putting up some pretty good numbers. It's not like it's an overly tough defense for point guard. So Mudiay at 5,900 in consideration as one of the options that I would look at. Steph Curry at 8,900. Tournament option just because of his ankle. Obviously, we might hear some more news, but if things aren't going to plan, or if they're going very well to plan, then he might be the first one that comes out. But he is worth looking at, definitely, with not many high price guys on the board in this slate in general. Jameer Nelson, I think his minutes are going to come back down now that Gaz Harris is back up to full go. So no interest there. Same with Jamal Murray or Sean Livingston. As the shooting guards go, 4,600 for Gaz. He had 22 in the last game in 30 minutes. So getting back into business, I think that Gaz Harris is a tournament guy that I'm not sure many people will be on. I like Clay at 5,900 in all formats. After not even after his big game today. Before that, I think 5,900 was a good price. I think this is a good spot for Clay. Pat McCaw, Ian Clark, no. Small forwards, Danilo Gallinari, the Rooster at 6,300. I guess if Wilson Chandler doesn't play, which is a possibility, we're going to see some more Gallo minutes, and that might push him into be a 35, 36 minute guy. And I think that's it's definitely worth using at 6,300. I think he's a pretty decent play there. Durant at 9,600 is nice too. Probably not one of my top high money guys, but in terms of the small forwards, then yes, he is. Iguodala gives us nothing. If Chandler plays, I reckon you could look at him at 5,200, but we just don't know that at this point. Nick Jokic at 5,400. I think that there's a tournament play here for him. He's done okay against the Warriors in the past. It'll be interesting to see what Malone does with the lineups. Nurkic might struggle. The traditional big men type guys do struggle against the Warriors, and that might see Jokic getting some extra playing time. No way you can rely upon him in a cash game. No chance. But at 5,400, he does have 30, 35, 40 point upside, and that could swing a tournament your way where I don't know if many people would be on board. It's a bit of a stretch, but especially if Chandler is out, I'm more on board with Jokic there. Draymond at 8,400, he feels relatively safe for 40 points in a cash game, which can easily work for you. And Ken Fareed at 5,100, just feel like he's like $500 too overpriced. Kevon Looney, David West, Darrell Arthur, who's also questionable, and Juancho Hernan-Gomez are the other power forwards who we don't think we'll be using. As for Nurkic at 5,700, I don't love it against this Warriors team. I'm not really interested in using him, and Zaza Pachulia is pretty much an afterthought at this point. The last game of the night, the Los Angeles Lakers and the Sacramento Kings. The Kings are favored by 4.5, and the total is 208.5 points. Larry Nance is currently listed as questionable with a concussion. Talk about him in a sec. Point guards, 6,000 for D'Angelo Russell. I love the price. I just don't love the minutes. In a tournament, sure, I could look at it because he's got an opportunity to really roast Ty Lawson and Darren Collison, but I don't trust Luke Walton with giving him minutes at this point, or enough minutes, so I think I'll leave him alone. As for Collison, he's at 6,300. Didn't start the last game. I imagine he starts this one because it didn't matter. He played 27 in the last game. Not sure that he's at that price worth really a look, though. Ty Lawson at 4,000, I think we can scrap that idea. At shooting guard, Lou Williams at 4,900. He's exceeding value basically every time he plays, so I think he's really should be a guy you almost look to lock into a lineup. And Jordy Clarkson at 5,100. Had a nice outing in the last one, but he's a little bit too variable for me, especially for cash. Aaron Aflalo, no. Nick Young at 4,100 I think can work. And enable you to get maybe a Durant into your lineup and Giannis into your lineup and a few high price guys, or Davis. Young can work at that 24 point mark, 4,100. I think that he can even exceed value, and that's I think that's worth a look. The small forwards, Matty Barnes, is no ability to trust what Dave Yeager's doing with Barnes or Caspi, so forget about both those guys in any sort of cash formats. Barnes played 27 in the last game, and Caspi played, I think he was out of the rotation completely. They could easily just switch into the next game, and Barnes plays 5 minutes and Caspi plays 24. In a tournament, sure, especially Caspi at minimum salary, but no way of being able to know what Dave Yeager's going to do with these guys. 3,600 for Brandon Ingram. He's starting to show a little bit, and if Larry Nance is out at 3,600, I think that Ingram is a fine flyer in a tournament, and it's the first time I've said that about him all year. 7,600 for Rudy Gay. He's delivering almost all the time. I think that getting 35 out of Rudy Gay almost feels easy at this point. I like getting that out of him. I like using him. And Luol Deng is the opposite of like. Power forwards, if Nance plays at 3,900, I think that that's a great opportunity for him. If he is out, I like Julius Randle a lot more, who's at 6,200. So just watch that situation. But Randle can be used, but Nance I would really like as a guy maybe to put alongside Anthony Davis to get more of those high-price guys in. At centre, Costa Koufos and Tim Mozgov we won't be using, but Boogie Cousins at 9,500. He's got a real chance to wreak a lot of havoc on this team at only 9,500. I think that's one of the better plays that's on the board in total. All right, that is it for today's show, guys. But before we go, let's look at the picks of the day on FanDuel. Dellavedova at 4,400, Timmy Frazier at 55, and Steph at 89 for a GPP. Shooting guards, Etuan Moore, 44, Klay Thompson, 59, and Giannis Antetokounmpo at 9,600. Small forwards, Justice Winslow, 48, Gallo at 63, and Kevin Durant at 96. For the power forwards, I like Terrence Jones at 45 for a tournament. I like Jokic at 54 for a tournament, and Tony Davis at 10,900. And the centers, Robin Lopez, 45, Greggy Monroe at 58 for a tournament, and Hassan Whiteside at 82. Over on DraftKings, we've got Langston Galloway at 3,200 in a tournament, Dragic at 67, and Antetokounmpo at 97. Shooting guards, Etuan Moore, 41, Klay Thompson, 62. Small forwards, Brandon Ingram at 33 in a tournament, Gallo at 61, and Kevin Durant at 94. The power forwards, Mirza Teletovic, minimum salary 3,000 for a tournament is worth looking at. Draymond at 78 and Anthony Davis at 11,300. And the centers, Omer Ashik is 3,000. I think that can work for you. Nick Jokic 55 for a tournament, and Hassan Whiteside at 8,500. We're done. That is it for today's podcast. If you like the show, go and leave a review on iTunes. Check out Basketball Monster, and don't forget to check out our sponsors, Draft. You can find their app at playdraft.com. Download the app, use your promo code ALOFANTASY, get a 100% deposit bonus match, and support the podcast while you're at it. It would be great if you could do that. So go and download this app all over the place. Use that promo code. Tell them you came from us, and let's make this deal successful. We are done. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. Jimmy Butler.